Hey everyone, this is your favorite radio host, your only radio host, of course, and your favorite girl, Corinne Lafont, broadcasting to you from Trinidad and Tobago, the lovely island in the Caribbean, on Between the Lines. And today I have a handsome man here with me. You know I only have handsome men on my show. So that's why you need to be logging in and looking and listening and following and subscribing to the channel and all, the things to do. I'm not going to tell you. So today I am talking with V. Lakshman. Did I pronounce that correctly? Good. V. Lakshman. I don't know what the V is for, and I see they call him VJ, so we'll find out a little bit more about that. And as you can see behind him, there are some things that may be familiar to you, like you will see these nice big posters with these characters, and it looks like a game. And we're going to be talking about that today, gaming, life, martial arts, which is where he started. He doesn't look like he will beat up anybody, but you just don't know. You just don't know. So we're going to be spending some time getting to know V, or VJ. I'll call him VJ, today on Between the Lines. And let me tell you a quick bit about him, because there's a lot we can learn from him in 30 minutes. And I don't normally spend 30 minutes. I spend more than that. So if we go over, don't quarrel with me. Let me grab his bio here and we'll go straight into it. So V. Lakshman grew up in Bangkok, Thailand. I don't know if he's there now, but we'll find out. Where he first discovered his love of the martial arts, mythological heroes, and exotic lands, all of which influenced the development of characters and the world in his debut fantasy series, Mythborn, and you're seeing the poster behind him, Faith of the Sovereign. His continued success includes the creation of the exciting digital role-playing game system, The Elder Scrolls, that quickly became and remains the world's definitive role-playing game enjoyed by hundreds of millions. Except me, I'm just one less of the millions. Welcome, VJ, to Between the Lines. I'm not hearing you. Why am I not hearing you? You're not coming through. I'm just seeing your lips moving. We were talking all along. As soon as we are ready to go live, what's going on? Nope, nothing yet. I'll tell you when I hear you. Yep. Okay, so great. We're hearing him now. Beautiful. Welcome, VJ, to Between the Lines.
Thank you, Corinne. I'm so happy to be here, and I hope my background in martial arts and writing or in video games can help your listeners, parents out there, and kids understand what the industry is about and how to enjoy it better.
Yeah, and like we were saying, because I was having a conversation with VJ prior to starting the recording, and we would, I was saying to him, look, I don't know much about this industry. I just know what I see my children do. My youngest son, he's 15 now. I mean, he's so caught up in games, and I know I represent hundreds of thousands of parents who see their kids are just caught up in this thing, and they're like, how can I get my child away from playing these games all the time? All they're doing is their thumbs are going on this device, whether PS, whatever. I don't know what it is, and they're just going, and there's no interaction. We are losing the interaction that we used to have, kids playing out in the yard, going out with their friends, riding bikes, creating and innovating, discussing, even when you're with your friends as adults and growing up, you're sitting next to the person and they're texting you right next to you, and you're like, what is going on? So, while it's fun to have the games, and I think it's, they have created games in such a way that, family games too, where you can play it on the big screen and everybody, becomes involved as part of the family, and they have created it. I don't know the term, you would probably know, where you can, it's sort of like when you move. Yeah, when you move, the thing moves with you, like you're in it kind of thing. So it has become so, it's a virtual sort of room where all the characters, it's like a Star Trek kind of thing going on.
Yeah, they're using their Connect systems and other different systems to hit your body with information that bounces back and tells the computer where you are, so you could do like dancing games and
Yeah.
things like that.
Look at where we have come to, VJ.
I
What
know.
is, my God, who would have thought? I mean, we would watch these things called Star Trek and Star Wars
Yeah.
and all these science fiction type things, and we'd be like, whoa, what if
Yeah.
that is possible? No, what a world. Are they crazy? That will never happen.
It's
And here
happening.
we are. Here
Yep.
we it's crazy. It's just crazy. And I mean, if that can happen now, I really don't. I am just going to just submit that in the next 5-10 years, what it will become, because there's no limit. There is no
That's right.
limit. And as I talk about it, I'm thinking to myself, what's the reason behind pushing the envelope really to
Mhm.
seeing what we can do, to seeing what's the reason behind people doing these things, creating such a reality? Is it because we're not accepting what we perceive as reality, and we have to create a certain reality that we feel comfortable with? Yeah, that's a really good question. I just came up with that. Yeah.
Well, I mean, look, I think ultimately, I grew up, I think the way you grew up. I grew up, my father's rule was that if the sun was out, the kids were out.
I
Right?
see it. I see
So we weren't allowed to come inside. I had, so you had to play outside and come up with, games and, invent ways to entertain yourself. And the whole family, all the families were looked after by all the families in the neighborhood. So,
Of course.
you just ran around and, I think that the world that was more innocent, and as things have potentially become more dangerous for our kids when it comes to people wandering around, uh, the kids themselves and parents have opted to have their children in safer environments, either aftercare, school care, or inside the house. And a natural result of that has been trying to find ways to entertain that child when they're at home.
Mhm.
And the nice thing about games, and the reason why I think they're so pervasive, is there's no danger to you physically in playing a game. Unlike, I mean, I know growing up, my parents for some reason decided that moving to Virginia would be a good idea, and I'm not a white person, and so it was it wasn't so great. It wasn't so great. So I had to learn how to fight really early, like really, like 8 years old, 9 years old, I was fighting. And so, that's why I joined the martial arts. And, for me, that was my imagination was, my mind was stimulated by going to the martial arts or reading, finding new ways to sneak home so I didn't get beaten up.
Oh my God, look at that.
So a lot of thinking going on. But, today everything is so safe that where's the mental challenges anymore,
Yeah.
in some levels. And I'm not saying it's good to terrorize kids. That's not the point. But I think the world was just different then. And so now, there's these interactive opportunities to play. And I think when I did a bunch of educational games, what we learned was that when you let someone practice something and the cost of making a mistake is very low, then they practice that a lot of times and they get a nice feedback loop for feeling good about accomplishing something. And
Okay.
that accomplishment is what they're searching for. That's very hard to get from outside. For kids who aren't very physical, it's difficult to get positive feedback from their friends. They're usually chased around.
Mm.
If they're skinny like I was, they were chased around a lot.
You were skinny. Look at you now. You're nowhere near skinny.
And so yeah, exactly. So they end up being I think it feels safer to just play a game than it does to worry about getting potentially beaten up or not being accepted by your group or being made fun of because you're wearing the wrong clothes or your name sounds funny or whatever.
Yeah.
I think that's what's really happening. The good news though is that parents Well, ultimately I got into martial arts because I needed to, protect myself. And I think that that gave me a certain amount of confidence to think about life a little differently.
Mhm.
Um, I do actually think kids need more interaction outside and with, see, I think games are great for practicing hand-eye coordination, for practicing logic skills, spatial reasoning. They add a lot to your ability to solve certain kinds of puzzles. They found that if you do certain kinds of games that your ability with math increases for the next 30 minutes by 30 to 40%. So, there's definitely benefits, but the downsides, I think that well, not, I shouldn't say down. I should say that the things that kids really need that they may not be getting if they're inside all the time is there's an entire intelligence that involves socializing and
Mhm.
just fitting, like finding your place. And
Yeah.
you have all these kids who never learn how to find their place until they have to leave home, and by then they're not good, I think, at hearing that they're not good at something. you
Mhm.
know they
Yeah. Yeah.
they you know they don't know how to they don't know how to accept uh, criticism, or to fill in the gap, or to have confidence to pick themselves back up. It's a hard balance, I think. And I personally have my kids equal time. They're actually, mine are too young to get on computer games, I think. Oh, maybe not, but I don't let them. um, but I do think later in life, they're 5 and 2 right now, so they're young. But when they're a little bit older, I think gaming will be a part of their life. Just because if I don't let them learn how to interact in a interactive environment, or in a VR, or in an augmented reality environment, a digital environment, if I don't give them those tools, I'm handicapping them in a world that only is going to use tools like that, simulation, using a computer. And I found that, people who know how to use their computer and play games are also good at other computer skills. And I think
Okay.
I think it's a helpful skill to have.
Um, you've raised some salient points there. I want to go back to the concern for safety for kids now, and the way that the world has become. And I wonder if it's really the world has become. It's not the world. We keep blaming externally. It's us.
Yep.
It's not the world. It's us.
Yeah. Right.
Right?
Yeah.
You have to take responsibility for that. And what really, I mean, I don't like to live in fear. You want to go somewhere, you go. You shouldn't be like, oh, you're gonna go there? Are you crazy?
Right.
No, you should be free to go wherever, whenever, at what time. I mean, I know there may be some concerns, and you don't probably go alone or take some chances. But that whole thing about safety, I remember going from house to house as a child. Going to
Yeah.
my neighbor's house, eating, whatever they cooked.
Yeah.
We were comfortable with us sleeping over, all that crazy thing. If a parent knew their child was missing, and I don't mean missing like as in kidnap, I mean you didn't see them for the day, you weren't worried. You're like, oh,
Yeah.
he's over by VJ, or Sandra had, or you know,
That's right.
yeah, you just were never worried
Yeah.
because you knew, and there were no telephones and stuff at that time to say, well, you could call to find out. There was this level of trust and comfort, and you just knew. And I guess probably because we all had a common way of socializing, that we believe that, you go over by Sandra's house, she would raise or take care of your child in the similar way, same values,
Right.
same attitudes. But now everybody have their own way, their own approaches. Everything is just sped up. It's sped up, and
I,
and speeding up more and more.
Yeah, I think one of the things that has changed is there are a lot more people in the world than there were when I mean,
Yeah.
I'm 51,
Mm-hmm.
so I mean, 1960 and 70,
Mm-hmm.
the world wasn't 7 billion people.
Yeah.
And I think as the world has expanded in its population, you've had more different, uh, for lack of a better word, tribes,
Mm.
interact, and you've had more customs and more cultures that
Yeah.
are put in close proximity, and
Traditions and
that
all that. Yeah.
yeah, and that just I think it's a good thing, right? But I think some people enjoy that idea, and not, my parents certainly wanted to expose me and my sister to different cultures. We're Indian, but I grew up in Bangkok. I
Mm-hmm.
moved then to America.
Mm-hmm.
I've lived in a number on the East Coast and West Coast. You asked earlier. Right now, I'm in Washington D.C.
Okay, nice.
and,
Mm-hmm.
and so I don't know. It's not as nice as the Caribbean. So
Of course not. Of
of
course
course
not.
not.
Of course not. Hell
There's
no.
no
Hell no.
good, no good cultures. There's no good food.
No. Right?
Right.
Right.
But yeah, we got a chance to explore and to learn. My father always thought that travel was the best education, and
Yes.
also the best way to learn tolerance for other people, because you saw that everyone was the same. Everyone had the same.
Mm-hmm.
They love their kids the same way. Kids play the same in every country I've been to. When I was a kid, and I was here in America, we played one way. When I went to India, they all play the same
Yeah.
way.
Same
And
way.
so
Same
so
way. Same way. Because the basic foundation is that we are all humans. So
that's right.
right. So it doesn't
That's
matter
right.
what color, what shape, what name you have. It doesn't matter. We're all just there's a common denominator. So
Also, sorry, go ahead.
no, go ahead. You go ahead.
I was just going to add that one of the big changes in social, why gaming has become so popular is um, there was a period of time in let's say the 80s,
Mm-hmm.
where there were a lot of arcades and kids would go and play quarters.
I grew up with the arcade. What is
Yeah.
wrong with you, VJ? Of course, the arcade. Yeah, I know.
And
No,
so,
when a child sees that big hell of a thing, they're like, "What the hell is that?" What?
but here's the thing: as that was a social experience too. They still were out with their friends, where 3 or 4 kids behind one
Yeah.
kid playing would play.
Mm-hmm.
But as the home systems got more powerful and our communication systems got better, you could start playing games with your friends from home. You didn't have to go anywhere. And,
Yeah.
and so now you have these kids who are playing very complex and interesting, simulation games where you're running around, essentially playing giant games of tag, but
Mm-hmm.
you're playing them on a gamepad, and you're playing with all your friends, and you're hearing them, and you're talking to them. You're just not out interacting with them, and that's a difficult thing to convince a kid that he's not going to have as much fun if he also has to go exercise and sweat to do the same thing he can do by sitting down.
Yeah. Yeah.
They're just lazy.
And it comes back again. It comes back again to the interaction. When your friends were behind you, there's an energy that's right there happening.
Mm-hmm.
No, they're in different locations. I mean, it allows for widening, expansion, getting other people involved. But I remember, like, my son was playing a game with people he didn't even know. There are
Yep.
people all over the world, and that is scary. And I'm like, son,
Yep.
do you know who you're talking to? Because some of them may ask for information. People use these things to get to your children. I can't remember what they call it, but I know it's an illegal activity online where
Mm-hmm.
people, because they know the kids are there and they're innocent and they're looking, for people to play with, to talk with, to interact with, and so they take advantage of that. So we as parents, coming back to the whole parent thing, how can we who grew up in the 60s or the 50s or whatever it may be, did, didn't grow up with this kind of industry or even thought about
Mm-hmm.
this type of industry. Now we have kids who are into it and we fall prey to it because this is what they want, and their friends are doing it, they're seeing it on TV, the movies are all about it, and we're like, yes, we have to give them, well, we don't have to, but we don't want them to feel as if we want them to live in our time. This is
Right.
their time, so okay, we buy the games, but we still don't know how to bridge that. We don't know how to manage that. I don't want to use the word control, but manage it and still create a balance.
Yeah.
Still create a balance of interaction, because you don't want to be sitting around a dinner table, VJ,
Yep.
Friends, family, and everything. I mean, it's supposed to be family time, and your child is secretly under the table. You're trying to have a conversation, and they're playing these games, and you're like, put the damn thing down. We're here. No, they just are addicted. It's an addiction. I'm not bashing gaming. I think it's good, but we need, with everything, there needs to be a balance. What
I
what
agree.
would you say? What would you say to that to help parents to manage this whole
I
thing about gaming?
I think so. There's an interesting statistic that is somewhat of a joke, but it's true, and it goes something like this. It says for every second in every second of the day, someone who never played games dies, and someone who's only going to play games is born.
What?
And so,
Come again.
so every second of the day, someone who never plays games passes away, and
Mhm.
someone who is only going to be playing games is born.
What kind
And
of
so, and so
that's
if you if
not
you think if
twisted?
you think about that, the game players in the world, people who know about gaming and interact interactively on screen,
Mm-hmm.
or they play these simulations, they are on the rise. And the old folks who've never done this, they're slowly going away. And
Mm-hmm.
the world itself is becoming the medium for exchange is interactivity and
Yes.
interacting through the digital medium.
I
So
like how you say that, a medium of exchange. Look at that. The
yeah,
only medium of exchange was money. What
yeah,
is
that's
going
right.
on? What
That's
is
right.
going
And,
on?
and what's really interesting about the medium of exchange in games is actually it's based around respect, and it's based around like player skill and player talent, and that talent and skill doesn't require the kid to have strong muscles or to be physically agile.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't actually discriminate too much when it comes to age versus capability, because as long as you're old enough to hold the controller, you may have the ability to do what you need to do. And also we in the gaming world take it very seriously to protect children. We all are parents ourselves, so when we do things, we try and build in um, a lot of different security measures to take care of kids online, including things like not letting free chat happen, making
Mm-hmm.
sure that has to be approved by parents, and by parent uh, uh, approval, actually digital approval online. We make sure that we have like let people interact with pre-canned sentences. We hide players' real names and use aliases. We protect everything through non-distributed servers. I mean, distributed servers so that people can't find your information very easily. Ultimately, if information gets out, it's typically through something like a hack, like when Sony got hacked.
Okay.
Um, and so, there's a lot of safeguards in place. I remember my son at the time was 3 years old, and I could put an iPad in front of him, and he would do this. He'd move things,
Of
and he'd hit
course.
the baby button for the thing he wanted to see, and he's 3.
Yeah.
That kid, when he turns 18, he will have had at least 15 years of interaction with an interactive tablet or pad, right?
Yeah.
Like and in fact, he may have more interaction than his teachers who may have started later in life,
My
right?
son, when he was 2, knew how to turn on the computer.
That's right. That's right.
He knew the
So
button to press it, to turn it on, and he knew how to move the mouse.
that's right. And so that's right. And so what my wife and I decided was, we wanted to give them the advantages that they needed when it came to being digital citizens in the 21st century. But we also have family values that we believe are important. And in our case, we're not suggesting this for everybody, but in our case, we used to turn the TV on while we ate because it would let like everyone eat in peace, because the kids would be watching TV, they wouldn't be screaming. But finally, I think about 2 years ago, or maybe a year ago, we said, forget it. We just shut off all electronics. And
Yeah.
now on, when we sit down, everyone sits at the table, we eat. If you're done eating, you talk about your day, right? You don't talk about, we don't go watch TV. We don't play video games. We sit at the table and we interact. And it started off, it was really hard because the kids didn't want to, and the wife was like, no one's eating. It was crazy. But,
Yeah, yeah.
eventually they got used to the idea that this is what dinner is. And I love that. Now, we sit down, and if I don't say something, my son will tell my daughter she needs to tell us about her day. It's sort of, it's good. And I think, however you do it in your family, however you feel is the right way to do it, I think it's important to have some time in the day when everyone's home, when there's no TV or electronics on, right? I mean, it's family time.
It is.
You know?
You have to create a balance.
Yep.
You have to set some sort of standard. And I know, like parents are just happy to just say, go and watch some TV, go and
Right.
play games, just to get rid of the kids.
Mhm.
And some of them are not even monitoring or watching to see, really keeping an eye on what's going on. Children
Yep.
are creating their own Facebook pages, adding friends, people from strange places. All
Right.
sorts of, yes, yes. I remember seeing my son chatting. I was passing in the living room one day, and I'm like, "Who are you talking to, sweetie?" And you know, and then I said no. When I saw the kind of questions the person was asking, I said, no, 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 no. Yeah, and he didn't tell me about he created a Facebook page, and I saw this page, and I'm like, no, no, this is, and they move so fast. They move
I,
so fast. Yeah.
I tell you, it's the same thing for me. I have an older son. He's 20,
Mhm.
and he's in college, and he there's a time when he would get mad at me because he said I would never like talk to him or write him or talk or call him or whatever. I mean, like, interact with him. And I was like, I call you all the time. It turns out he doesn't check any of that. He just looks on Facebook. He never sees me there. So he just
Oh,
assumes I'm not call, because that's where they're interacting. And
yeah,
it never occurs to me to go there.
yeah.
So,
But that's how they see communication and interaction. You're
yeah,
not talking to
yeah,
me. You're like,
yeah. So funny. Like, oh man, I'm in the wrong place.
so
But
you started off with martial arts, of course,
mhm.
by force, because a
That's right.
choice.
Yeah.
It's amazing how our lives are led because of certain things that we are forced into. Probably
Yeah.
if you didn't go Virginia, you probably mightn't be doing Mythborn.
Well, actually, it's great about martial arts. It led to Mythborn, my book, and the book is leading to video games and an animated series. I've been very lucky because I got a chance to write about something, the martial arts, in a medium that I know really well, and bring it to this fantasy world where I can introduce kids and adults to some of the philosophies of martial arts in an entertaining way, where you really learn some of the wisdom and the experience that the martial arts taught me,
Mhm.
um, through a different kind of lens. So it's not like preaching. You
Yeah.
know.
I've always loved martial arts. I still do. I love the discipline. I love, of course, the way the body looks. You know, I've always loved it. I did it for a little while, and I want to get back into, probably not in a deep way. And of course, I'm older now, so of course the bones and the muscles. But that doesn't mean to say it
Everything
can't.
hurts.
Yes, everything hurts. But the pain of getting old, or the body not getting old, the body aging is one thing, but the pain of knowing that your body can look better and feel better, I prefer that kind of pain. When
Yeah, I agree.
yeah, I prefer that kind of pain. So if I need to go into martial arts or something that would give me pain, knowing in my mind is going to lead me to be better, to look better, to feel better, be healthy, I don't mind that kind of pain. But
Yeah.
but persons listening to this and who will be listening to this, their kids may not be involved in martial arts or nothing, like how you started, but they
Mhm.
do have an interest in games, and they talk about these games, and they're watching these games, and they have friends with these games, and their conversations, everything is about the games. And in the Caribbean, what I find is that there's not a lot of exposure. I mean, I've seen it since I've been back, because I was living in Jamaica for 21 years, and I've been back to Trinidad for a year now, a year and some months. And I've seen that people are exposing to some respect, like at the universities, having courses,
Mhm.
whether it be short courses and stuff, in terms of animation. But the industry is still an emerging industry, and for children growing up in this era who want to pursue gaming, animation, because when you think of animation, the first thing that comes to my mind is anime, the Japanese,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, anime, and they have these people. I mean, they just create these nice people that do all sorts of things that you want to do, you know,
Yep.
with swords and fighting and fire coming out from wherever, you know, you know. So what would you suggest should be the path for parents? And I think the response, I don't think I know the responsibility of parents, because that's the kind of parent I am, is to really watch what your children have an affinity to.
Mm-hmm.
It's not for you to push your agenda on them. What you miss out. So you wanted to be a doctor, or you are a doctor, you expect your child to be a doctor, or a teacher or something, or a lawyer. You must be able to see the natural talent in your kids. So if it's music, you expose them to music. Wherever it goes, well, that's that. You have done your part to expose them. So if you see your child is into this, you should be encouraging them. Hey, do you want me to send you to a course? Do you want me to do whatever? And see where that goes. What would be the path to channel the kids, or even
Mm-hmm.
adults who may have an interest in this, to probably communicate like your son did, to bridge that gap, to be a part of that world with your children. What is the path that you would recommend after doing this for so many years?
Well, it's helpful maybe for me to just let parents know, and also people out there interested to know what can you actually do in the gaming industry. People don't know all the jobs, right?
Mm.
So they fall into sort of four categories, five categories that people can go into, and then I can tell you for each of those, which way is best.
Mm-hmm.
So the five categories are technical, right, which is like coding, math, systems analysis, things like that.
We're not doing
Uh,
that, but
right, right. Yeah, I'm not doing that. The second one is design, which is mostly writing
mm,
and describing, being able to describe complex problems in interesting but also simple ways.
okay,
Um,
I like
the
that.
next the next one is art, which you've already mentioned, which is animation and creating how something looks, like these things behind me, which
Mm-hmm.
are actually done by a game artist. I put the first time I ever gave a job, and now this kid who started when he was like 16 years old, I
Mm.
gave him his first job when he was 16. He's now the lead artist on Spider-Man: Homecoming, and he did the concept art on The Abyss and
Are you
James
serious?
Cameron stuff and Star Trek Beyond. He's crazy talented, as you can see. And
Yeah.
I mean, really, really talented. So, I mean, so there's art, and then there's testing, right, which is testing the games, seeing if they work. Personally, I think all of us in the game industry feel testing is the hardest job you can have, because you never get a chance to actually play the game when it's awesome. You get to play it when it's awful and doesn't work right and it cheats, and, and you have to be okay with that, and it
But you sit
constantly
in a
crashes
room.
on you.
Yeah, but you sit in a room. I think I've seen something like that, where you sit in a room with a bunch of people and all you're doing is playing games all day. There may be people that like that and they get paid for that. To say, oh,
Well,
this is not
Well,
good.
you're not playing the game all day. What's going on is imagine if you're familiar with like Microsoft Word, right? Let's
Mm-hmm.
say you're going to write something. Imagine if you boot up Word, you start to type and it crashes. And then you have to remember, what was I typing? And you have to
Oh
write it down. And you
gosh.
write down what you're typing. Then you have to write down everything. Then you have to go back and you have to do it again and repeat it until you can
No, no,
show
I
exactly
changed my
what's going.
mind. I changed my mind. I don't want that
It's
position.
not
No,
it's
no,
not like it's not having fun.
no, no. It
It's
look like
or
it.
I'm sorry, the people in QA enjoy that. You're right, but I don't enjoy it, so that would
I
be very
don't.
difficult for me.
No, now that you have said that, I don't enjoy that. I take it back. Yes.
Yeah. So and then there's sound and music, right?
Mm,
So in the end, there's people who do all the music and all the sounds, and they really are well played in that, and that's from a game production side.
mm,
On the publishing side, you have marketing, you have
mm,
sales, you have all the like different kind of communication skills that would go on. So there's a wide variety of things that people can get into. And oh, I forgot. I'm sorry. And then on the production side, not most, but the main one also, there's a production actually, which is running schedules, running budgets, resources, balancing how much money can be spent versus, because games are big money items, right? So you
Yes.
have, typical budgets, in the games today are several million to hundreds of millions of dollars. I think the last big budget game I did was about 75 million, and I had
Wow.
150 people on the project, so it was not a small project, and it wasn't something that I could mess up, because if I'm 10% off, I've wasted $7.5 million.
Wow.
That's not all, you get fired for doing that, right? Easily.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so, so I think there's something to finding out what your kid likes and then helping them in that direction. To that end, I would say that there are popping up in every college and local university various game development majors. But even before that, have them intern at a game company. There are game companies everywhere. Like, have them go intern as a tester, or as a production assistant, where they won't
where
really
would you
be.
go for that? Where would you go for that? I mean, I'm in the Caribbean. Of course, it will not happen here, or it may not happen here, or it isn't happening here. Where are the key countries or places to go to check that out? Because I want when persons listen to this, they're able to be guided by something. Where can you suggest that they go?
Well, look, gaming is worldwide, and it's an industry that's expanding so quickly that it's easier to Google, gaming in my area or game companies in my area, and have a list with addresses of every gaming company that's there. In the United States, you'll find that, in the East Coast, New York or Florida, in the middle of the United States, Austin, Texas is very big. If you go out to the West Coast, almost anywhere in California is huge.
Of course.
Oregon is huge. Yeah. There's spots all over the United States that are very, very conducive to gaming, and it's easier for you to Google gaming, and an address. If you're international, when I look at different gaming companies, Europe is very big, especially if you look at like London or England. You look at Spain. There are companies in Finland and in Norway that are amazing. Poland is a huge gaming mecca in some ways.
Poland.
Yeah, so Poland, yeah. So you have to do a search to find the game companies. There are enough out there that there's a lot of different opportunities, almost everywhere.
Okay.
Also, you have to sort of think about what kind of game you might want to create, because there's a whole industry of different types of games. There's mobile games that are on phones. There's Facebook and social games that are different than mobile games.
Look at that.
There's
I didn't even think of that. Yeah,
there's console games, right? That are on like PC. PS4 and Xbox One. So
from not even having games to thinking all of that. Oh my God.
Yeah, there's a lot of different. That's good, right? There's a lot of opportunity. One thing I would say that I would urge parents to remember, and that is, just because a kid shows some kind of interest or talent talent in a particular direction, it doesn't mean that they can't be successful in any other endeavor or direction. One of the things that we've learned, or at least it's argued, is that, let's say 10,000 hours is considered an expert in a subject. So to get 10,000 hours in something full time, that's about 5 years. It's 2,000 hours a year, so 5 years of work, and you're probably an expert in that kind of job. If you're doing it part time, then it's 10 years. And so that's why, if you think about it, your insurance rate goes down around 25 years old, right? Because you started when you were 15, and we give you about 10 years before we assume that your insurance is going to be a little lower. And so I think that, then think about this, like for me, karate, I have about 94,000 hours of training.
Wow.
So,
I don't even have 10 or 5.
Yeah, so I've trained a lot. I have scars all over my body and hands to just it's nuts. My nose, it's been busted 9 times,
It
I
doesn't
think.
show. It doesn't show.
It
It
shows when you're close. This tooth is
your,
awesome. All
your teeth looks perfect. Please.
they're all broken. It's the thing is, but I think that if you practice, if you're a kid out there and you want to be an artist and you can't draw, don't say to yourself, I can't be a game artist, I can't draw. Start
Exactly.
practicing, right?
Yeah.
Because you can learn the same skill. There's evidence that shows that when you look at kids who play violin and you have a prodigy kid who at 10 years old is playing awesome,
Yes.
and you have a kid who can't play at all at 10, and then you measure them in 10 years,
Yeah.
there's no difference in
Yeah.
their playing.
Exactly.
So
Yeah.
it's just practice.
Never give up. Never give up.
Yeah.
Wow. So let's just go back a bit before we go forward again. Your martial arts.
Mm-hmm.
You have learned a whole lot of stuff about martial arts since I have an interest in that. Tell us
Mm-hmm.
some of the things that you're exposed to, and do people now come up to try to beat you?
They used to. um, the thing with the martial arts is a couple of things I've learned. One is, um, anyone can be beat.
Mm.
It's not about a magic move. I really, really thought when I was a kid. I started when I was about 9 years old or 10 years
Mhm.
old, and I was the only kid in the class. My instructor took me just because my dad begged him because, I was getting beaten up all the time, and so I started training against adults. And I remember thinking, well, I'm getting beat now because no one's taught me the right move,
Mhm.
and really that's not the case. The case is that practice matters, size matters, right? You have to have technique plus strength, and you have to get confident in your technique before that will take over, and it won't just be you trying to power your way through things. And because you can't power your way through everything,
Mm.
ultimately there's always someone out there who is stronger than you. So techniques do matter, and the only way you get good at techniques is practice. You practice them and you get better at them. I don't think there are no magic moves. What there truly is though are.
Oh, I'm not hearing you. I'm not hearing you, VJ. Your audio is
So,
gone. Yes.
sorry, is it better now?
Yes, I'm hearing
Yeah.
you. Mhm.
Okay. If you practice long enough, your moves look magical to other people, right?
Yeah.
That it's not something that you normally would think of. And I've seen people do things, and I've done things. Like I've had people who could throw a board in the air and kick it and break it, and then break the two pieces before they hit the ground.
Yeah.
I mean, things like that, which you're like, what?
Yeah.
um,
Yeah. Yeah.
and I think that that's where real training comes in. So,
Mhm.
what I would urge people to do if they train in the martial arts is realize you have to be patient. It takes time, like everything. It's if there were my instructor used to tell me, he say, "You're so frustrating. If there were a faster way to train you and get you out of here, I would." you know,
I could relate to that. Yeah.
yeah, so, it's like being a kid. If we could train you faster, we will. Don't give up on yourself. It's with anything, you have to put the time in.
Yeah. I love that. I love that. That's a really great tip. And that relates to anything. Because
Yes, true.
everybody wants to have success fast.
Hmm.
Everybody wants to be rich fast. Everybody wants to have children fast, get married. Everything is just fast, like fast.
Because they're good at video games so fast. They're like
Yeah, I
every
want to do everything fast.
like a video game.
Yeah, but you have to take the time. You have to
Right.
take the time. I think that's one of the greatest tips coming out of our discussion. So Mythborn is your book.
Hmm.
Do you have your game there with you that you can probably show it on your screen? I can stop sharing my screen. You can show your screen and you can kind of
I don't. Right now, we're working on the book series. There's 3 books out now, with the 4th one about to come out.
mm-hmm,
It's a 5-book series total,
mm-hmm,
and I'm starting on the game designs for an interactive story, and for a number of different areas like mobile games where there's some interesting opportunities, in especially in some of the new genres that mobile has opened up.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of our effort is being placed now in just building and completing the world. When I built the very original Elder Scrolls, I must have written 5 novels worth of backstory about the world, about the maps, about the people, all the races. And that's how you build, I think, a cohesive new world like this, where I spend my time thinking through all the pieces of the world that I need to build to make it feel alive and come
Wow.
to life. And
What
so,
sort of mind does it take to create that sort of that? Yeah, no, I mean, I'm interested in that. What sort of mind does it take for somebody to have that kind of vivid, um, forward thinking, imagination to come up with something? Because somebody be like, how did he create all of this? How did he think all of how could he piece it together to make it flow? It makes sense, or that may not make sense, or you create things that leave room to even build on something later on,
yeah.
what sort of mind does it take to do that?
Well, what's interesting is I grew up naturally very curious about everything.
Mm-hmm.
And my parents, like any good parents would do, they encouraged that by telling me stories, by challenging me to learn. I started reading very early. Maybe I was 7 or 8 years old,
Mm-hmm.
and I read Shogun. It was one of my first books, and it's by
Yes,
James Clavell, and it's a
yes.
huge book. And I loved reading, so I started reading everything. I must have read. There's no joke. By the time I was 15 or 16, I'd read thousands of books by that time.
Mm-hmm.
Mostly in fantasy and science fiction, but in sort of all subjects. I'd read about submarines, about rockets, about dinosaurs, about
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
everything, right? And so when I got to school, I kept getting horrible at like keeping one major. I kept switching my major.
Yes.
I wasn't happy with what I was doing. But ultimately, what ended up happening was all through this time, I was reading and reading and reading. And if there's any one lesson I learned in life, the best education I think you can get is reading, right?
Yes.
Because you open yourself up to all kinds of things. When I ended up in college, I ended up doing mythology, a lot of like Arthurian legends,
Wow.
different things like that. And so I had this whole background of like growing up in Thailand, had all the Thai myths. My
Mm-hmm.
parents are Indians, had all the Indian myths. Then I came to America and I wanted to go find out, about church. So I went and, went to Baptist church for a while and learned that. I read the Bible. Then I
Yes.
got interested in like, what was going on with early other religions. So I started learning about Buddhism and
Mm-hmm.
Shintoism. And then I got into the martial arts, and that made me want to learn Chinese and
Yes.
Japanese.
Yes.
And it just constantly kept going. How I got to writing a book, though, was honestly learning the skills of video game design. So remember I told you all those different
Yes.
things you could do? Well,
Yes.
I ended up coming up as a designer. So I was a writer, right? And I would write. And then I was also a producer, so I would manage schedules and budgets.
Mm-hmm.
And and the skills you learn as a game designer, or that you have to learn, is even if you're self-taught, is how do you take something that is immensely open-ended and try and create it as lists, like lists that can be done by a programmer, because ultimately your job is to take an idea and make it into a language that a programmer can code.
Yes.
And so it's not, you don't need to know how to code, but imagine if if I said, hey, you have a character that jumps from here to here, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, as a designer, you have to say that I'm going to use, I'm going to look up how this works. There's a formula for ballistics that I'm going to use. It involves gravity, it involves momentum, and it involves energy, things like that.
Wow.
And then you figure out how that formula can be applied, and then you figure out what don't you need the formula, what's too complicated, and you can break it down into very simple, statements that if you give a programmer, they understand what direction you want to go in, and then they'll do the complex, crazy math, right, that makes it act the way it should act. And I think the same thing for if you're fighting enemies and they would do one thing if you do one thing, or do another thing if you do
Yeah.
another thing. That's just statistics. You got to understand how the bell curve works, and that in one standard deviation there's a certain amount of variance of 66%. And I mean, it's all
Oh,
stuff you could teach yourself, and it's all very basic math and algebra, very basic. But it turns out it's like one of those jobs where you actually will use algebra. so, so you should pay attention in
that's too
school.
much for me. That's too much for me. I'm trying to think. I'm listening to you, and you're talking about all these different things and mathematical formulas and everything. And I'm like, how in exposure to gaming that can teach you life lessons? When you were doing chess, which was the thing at the time, chess was the thing at the time.
Yay. Love chess.
About strategy, mind control, a lot of things you learn in learning chess. You know how to maneuver.
And you think ahead.
Yes, and you think ahead. You plan for your opponent, kind of a thing. It teaches you a whole lot of stuff. So I'm thinking, okay, we've moved from chess to gaming now. What are some of the life lessons that we can learn from gaming, besides just, as you say, hand-eye coordination? Although these things move very fast and it could affect your brain, but what else? I mean, in terms of major life lessons, what can we take away from gaming?
Well, you know what? As a player of games, we have there is absolute evidence that kids who interact and play first-person shooters, or games where they're in a simulation against other opponents, their ability to manage a lot of input, a lot of information, and then codify it into a kind of priority list has been greatly enhanced. So you put that same kid into a place like a job where a lot of information is going to come at them, and they got to figure out what to prioritize over what else. Those are the skills that games can teach you. I think there's a lot of different other things too. There's spatial games that teach you spatial reasoning and all that. But I think what you might be asking more along the lines, I thought you were asking was, how did I sort of gain skills from gaming that allowed me to write the book? And that's another area of aspect, right? So when you see your kids playing games, or if you get into the games industry, one of the things that you really have to be able to do if you're going to be in the writing side of things, in the planning side of things, is actually what you just said. It's planning. It's thinking through the priority of all the things that could happen, and then understanding what actually will affect your game's ability to stay on track, on target, to be fun, and what can you do to make it better. I think prioritizing things, and to making lists, and making sure that how you go about affecting the limited amount of things you can affect within a larger scope of all the things that you could affect is the kind of prioritization skill that is very necessary to be successful as an adult.
Nice.
It's the same way that if you practice driving, right? Like, there's all kinds of input coming to us for driving.
That's right.
And young drivers react to everything, right?
Yeah.
But as you get older, and driving wise, you learn that not everything, you don't need to jerk the wheel every time something moves.
Yes. Yeah. Comes with experience and time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Comes with experience and time. That thing called time.
That's right.
Yeah. So your role, I'm trying to understand. So you've written these books, or in the midst of writing all these books, but the gaming side of it, what is your role?
So I will be the creator, the designer. So I will come up with the concept for what the game will be. I will write something called the design document, and that document has in it all the different features the game will have. Like, I'll have a character that can do this, or we'll have an inventory, or we'll have a gun, or whatever it is, right? And then I'll write the art list that has all the art that we might need, not down to all the pieces of art, but like general sets that
Mm-hmm.
then a good art director will take and create a much bigger list out of.
Okay.
I'll write all the like the style of music, basically all the conceptual stuff that gives the world a feel. I'll write up, and then people who are considered top of each category, like the top programmer, top designer, top music guy, all that, they'll expand on that, with choices and things like that. So if you think about it, my job on making Mythborn a game is sort of like what a director will do for a movie,
Okay.
right?
Okay.
But other people who are much better than me will do the actual like coding or things like that.
Okay. Got you. What is your website, VJ, so that I
Yep.
can feature that website so persons can come check you out? Let me
Yeah, I love visitors. We are I respond to people. So Mythborn is the book. Oh, I didn't tell anyone. Mythborn is the story of a young assassin apprentice, a kid who's training in the martial arts,
Mm-hmm.
to end up being like a monk or a infiltration type expert. And he finds out that his master has been ordered to kill him in the next 8 days. And so he has to figure out how to survive. And in trying to figure out how to survive, he learns that he, in fact, and this whole thing that he is trying to unravel is a small thing in a much bigger thing happening in their world.
Nice.
And the reasons why you might like Mythborn are a couple. One, I passed the Bechdel test, which is in Hollywood, they give this test to movies that say, hey, are there strong female characters in your movie? And the way they test it is they ask, are there two females in the movie that have names that talk to each other and not about a man? And 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 my book passes that a lot. All my characters are strong females who drive the plot forward because I have, in my life, an incredible mother, a grandmother, and my sister were all big influences for me in in strength. And I never grew up. I grew up realizing there are smart people and stupid people, and there are lazy people and there are driven people. But I never learned that was based on gender. Like it
Yeah.
never, no one. I never saw the world as, oh, because he's a man, he's going to be
Yeah.
stronger.
Yeah.
I didn't see it that way. And so, and also the first time I got my nose broken was by a woman in class. So I learned early not, to never trust anyone in a karate uniform. Um, but in the second area, and the cover hints to it, but if you notice, the female looks slightly Asian, and the boy on the right is brown.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
The kid in the middle, the white kid, he's actually the bad guy. And all my characters who are of, my book features characters of color, characters of different backgrounds and different cultures.
Yeah.
I felt it was really important to like build this idea of a holistic culture
Nice.
and world of differences that are getting along. It's how I sort of felt my life went. And so,
Well, people like you, and myself, of course, included, because I'm a mix of two cultures, Black and Indian,
yep.
and we see the world differently. We live in the world differently, and it's not the same for somebody who's just strictly of one.
Yep.
One compared to if you're more than one. And I think that's very clear and evident because somebody who is of black and white mixed, they just don't see the world the same way as if they were just purely white or if they were purely black. It's just different,
Yep. It's true.
So it's good to bring that kind of holistic thing, and we saw that, of course, in Star Trek, because Star Trek clearly had all different kind of people. It's crazy getting along, living together, in relationships, and having children. That
I loved it.
That was really the world that should be now, where we all get along. Yeah, we may have differences, but we all get along.
That's right. I agree 100%. And so if you want to find the book, you were saying my website is www.mythbornmedia.com, and Mythborn is spelled.
I'm trying to get to there. MYTH.
MYTH. BORN media, MEDIA
Mm-hmm.
.com.
Yeah.
And so www.mythbornmedia.com. That's the website where you can learn all about Mythborn and all the things we have in production. We have the audio book out now. It's getting huge reviews that really it's really selling well. I think the narrator does a great job of building something amazing there.
Mm-hmm.
And ultimately, I think one of the great things you can really enjoy is just the fact that we are constantly building new content for the world and new things for people to see.
Yeah. I'm
Um,
on the site here
and like,
now.
oh yeah, that's right. I can see it, and it's great. And I think also the other thing that people will really enjoy is that we are. I mean, I'm feverishly working on book 4. Like I said, there'll be video games in development.
Mm-hmm.
And if you want to check out the book online, you can check out the actual book on Amazon. Just go to Amazon.com and you can type in Mythborn and you'll find it for sale there.
I'm trying to
Uh,
scroll down. It's not allowing me to scroll. I don't know.
oh, that's weird. Um,
It was a while ago. Let me
hmm,
see if I refresh it. I don't know. It was a while ago, but no, I'm not. I'm not able to scroll down. Here we go. Yes.
there you go. Yeah. Um,
It's a
yeah.
beautiful cover. I love it. I
Thank
love
you.
these. I love the characters. They seem so
Yeah.
strong and sexy. What is going on? Why?
She's awesome. Well, check out the next cover when you go down a little further. The next ones are amazing,
Oh,
right?
these are beautiful. These are.
Yeah,
I love it. I love it. It's very. It's just like those gaming. You know, when you go and buy those movie things,
that's
movie
right.
covers. Yeah, it's
That's
very very professionally done.
Thank you, thank you. And I think ultimately the audiobook has been probably the big surprise for us. I hope it doesn't mean people prefer to listen than read, but
Yeah,
whether
well, that's
however
how it
they.
goes now. That's how it goes now because I mean, I even thought about it myself the other day. I'm like, gosh, I have a book reading. It's an ebook. I have it on Kindle, but I have the audio book too. And I'm like, I could have finished this book if I had just sat down for an hour and listened. If I had just
That's
sat
right.
down for an hour and listened. But
That's right.
I'm traditional in the sense of I like the printed books where I could turn the pages, smell the pages right up in the book kind of thing, fold it and stuff.
I, I,
And then I switched to Kindle, and I'm writing notes in the Kindle. So I need to probably just listen to the audiobook and just get the book out of the way so that I can move on to another one.
does this play the audio if you hit play? Will we hear it? Because you could
Yes.
hear the guy's voice. I have a story about the guy. Listen.
Mythborn 1, Rise of the Adepts by V. Lakshman. Any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic.
Nice.
Okay, so if you pause that, so here's the funny story. You read my wife reads my books, so she's been reading them with me as I've been going, and she'll give me feedback and all that. And by the way, that girl right there in the yellow, she is everyone's favorite character. Her name is Yateji. She's a princess who's amazing, super
Yeah.
tough. Just really everyone really enjoys her. So, anyways, I'm listening to the audiobook for the first time in bed, and my wife is like, "Oh my God, who is that? That sounds amazing. What's that? What's that book?" I'm like, "That's my book." And she goes, "Really? That's your book?" I go, because the voice gives such a big difference to the way it
It does.
sounds and from your own mental voice. So
Oh,
I told her she can't hear. She liked him too much, so I'm not gonna let
But
her
what
hear.
is this? What is this? Jealousy, VJ. But
I'm
the
kidding.
voice.
You can do it.
The voice of a man is always very attractive. That will get you weaker than he. That will get you weaker than he. Oh my
Well,
God.
it's okay. It's okay. She can listen to it. But
Once she
I just.
once she doesn't meet him, right? Yeah. Yeah, but it's
Unfortunately for me, everyone's local.
yeah, but it's a lovely voice. I love it. And
Thank
picking
you.
picking the right voice is very, very important when
Thank
it
you.
comes to different characters
Yeah,
and
he's
especially
very
reading
good.
the book. Yeah, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, this is nice. Oh my God. Well, all the best to you, VJ. I mean, this
Thank
is
you.
this is exciting stuff. This
Thank
is
you.
really exciting stuff. And like I was saying to you before we started recording, my son is into this, and I really want you to connect with him. It may encourage him, lead him down a particular path. He will see what he's doing, and there may be young people who may want you to reach out to them, connect with them,
Mhm.
And
Yeah, I'm happy to do that. And whatever information I can provide, feel free to pass that on to the listeners who ask. I'm always happy to help.
yeah,
For the listeners out there, if you text Mythborn, Mythborn, to 66866, then you'll join our fan club. So text Mythborn to 66866, and you'll join our fan club and be part of our emailing list. And I'm always happy to reply to questions and help everyone.
nice.
Again, it's www.mythbornmedia.com, and you can Google Mythborn on Amazon and find everything. And I hope you connect with us. I love the fans. I mean, I write for people to read, so it's great to connect with people.
Yes, and do you have a Facebook page and stuff like that, social media?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm sorry, I should have said, if you go onto Facebook, you can Google Mythborn and it'll show up. And also every Tuesday and Thursday, from 3 p.m. to 4 p.m., I'm running a YouTube channel called Mythborn Live.
Nice.
And on that channel, I talk about the influences of Mythborn, whether it's cultural mythology, ghosts, paranormal,
Nice.
fantasy and magic, other books, video games. I give advice when it comes to writing. I give advice when it comes to video games and what I'm playing now. So join me Tuesdays and Thursdays at Mythborn Live on YouTube.
Okay.
And we also have a Patreon page that's Mythborn Media on Patreon, and you can join and be a subscriber there and help support Mythborn as we do a bunch of things. So that's all new. That's why I wasn't really thinking about it. It's like, oh my gosh, that's right. We have all this new stuff up there. I'm going to make a little card for myself to remember what all to say.
That's okay. I appreciate having you on the show. It's been great. I mean, this is totally different to, the other guests that I've had, and this is really a breath of fresh air. Not that the others haven't been, but it's just different, and then I like the idea of us discussing this around, parents, kids, and helping them to get involved into something different. The world is changing, and it's not about being a doctor, lawyer, and teacher, or whatever it may be. Not that we are discounting those, but we have to open our minds to new things. New industries are cropping up each and every day, and there's nothing wrong, it's nothing less. It can actually be, the way of the world. And so it's great to be a part of it.
Yeah, I agree. I think in ancient times, everyone struggled with the idea of teaching your son or daughter how to hunt or use a weapon because it's dangerous.
Yes.
But in the end of the day, it was necessary.
Yes.
And in the same way, in the modern world, our weapons are computers, and they are, being online. And like you said earlier, I think it's important to teach our kids how to do it, but also with moderation and to remember, to do it responsibly and in a safe manner.
Yes, yes. Thank you so much, BJ Lakshman.
Thank you, Corinne. I'm so happy.
Yes, I'm happy that you were here with me. We spent a lot of time together. And, and I'm sure we're going to be spending a lot more time. So I will be in touch. Please connect with me. I'm on social media as well. And I would love to see where all of this goes. Really, it's very, very interesting. I'm happy for you. Congrats on everything that you're doing now and what you will be doing.
Corinne, thank you so much for having me on. I really appreciate it.